How you doing? You got an officer here? I'm very interested in Scientology, particularly L. Ron Hubbard's connection with Aleister Crowley. You know who Aleister Crowley is? The Satanist who said you murder children and you get magical power? Do you know what I'm talking about? No, I'm serious. L. Ron Hubbard said he's very good friends with Aleister Crowley.
A magician, the magic cults of the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries in the Middle East were fascinating. The only modern work that has anything to do with them is trifle wild in spots, but it's fascinating work in itself, and that's work written by Aleister Crowley, the late Aleister Crowley, my very good friend. He signs himself the Beast, the mark of the beast, 666.
Yeah, Katz versus the United States Supreme Court case says that there's no reasonable expectation of privacy on a public sidewalk.
Okay, but
Do you know about Aleister Crowley, the Satanist?
do you want me to answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, can you just put it down just for one moment?
No, there's no reasonable expectation of privacy here. And the Supreme Court case, Robinson versus Fetterman, says that not even real police officers have an expectation of privacy on a public area, and you're not a real police officer. Yeah, I answered the question about Aleister Crowley.
Can you just put it down for one moment?
No.
Okay. Can you just put it down for one moment?
Third time, no.
Okay. Would you mind putting it down for one moment?
Do you know about... I am Lord Xenu. I have been sent here reincarnated in this body to expose and debunk this bizarre cult of Scientologists pretending to be police officers. Yeah, go read Aleister Crowley's book, Magic in Theory and Practice. Okay? And go look up the audio clip. You'll find Aleister Crowley was very good friends with L. Ron Hubbard.
But it's fascinating work in itself, and that's work written by Aleister Crowley, the late Aleister Crowley, my very good friend.
L. Ron Hubbard's own words. Very good friends with Satanist Aleister Crowley, who wrote Murder Children and You Get Satanic Power. Okay? Yeah, go look it up, buddy.
Okay,
I am the Lord Xenu.
we're calling what you're doing to the police being disruptive.
No, it's not disruptive, it's fun. I am Lord Xenu. I shall return. Yeah, they called the cops. Say hi to Aleister Crowley for me, Scientologist scum!
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Take 5001.
Yeah, we just can't seem to get this these props in place and everything else. It's kind of like a spur of the moment video, but it's hard hitting, I think.
Yes, this is going to be hard hitting, and we want to thank Mark Dice for his video on Scientology. That was very eye-opening for us, something we didn't realize.
Well, it also made me think of a scripture that I'd used in the previous video, and I'm going to reread it right here because it really fits in with what Mark Dice was trying to point about Aleister Crowley.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Mark Dice, go check out his channel. His Man on the Street videos are awesome. And we're not going to get into too much of Scientology's, history and exposing them because Leah Remini has done so much on this already. We don't have to.
Right.
But we do want to talk about the connection between Scientology and Aleister Crowley because many of us are familiar with Aleister Crowley. He called himself the Beast, 666, the wickedest man on the earth. And just real quick, before Mike gets into what he wants, I just want to put up, this is Aleister Crowley's book. This is Charles Taze Russell's book. Do you notice any familiar symbols? I'm just saying.
Yeah. If you really listened to what was being explained about the Eastern mysticism religions and some of their practices, particularly the practice about killing young boys and getting that energy from them. I pointed this out in a video a little while back, and the backlash was horrific from the Christian side of the argument, trying to tell us, well, Mikey, you've got it wrong because what this was is that, you know, these women were turned into slaves. These young girls were turned into slaves. And like Kim mentioned, then why kill the boys? Why murder the boys? Okay? Now think about
Are they a little bit stronger as far as being slaves?
Well, exactly. One would think that if you're going to capture young boys and young girls for the purpose of slavery, you would prefer the strength and the vitality of a young boy. You know, after all, they can carry more pieces of wood. They can do more, you know, stronger manual labor. But no, let's go back and remember what said about the mysticism and the killing of young boys and getting their vital energy.
You know who Aleister Crowley is? The Satanist who said you murder children and you get magical power?
Numbers chapter 31. And you can read this all in context. Start with verse 13. But now I'm going to drop down to verse 17. And now kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has intercourse, who has had intercourse with man by lying with a male. And preserve alive for yourselves all the little ones among the women who have not known the act of lying with a male. Do you understand the connection between the Middle Eastern mysticism and what's written in your own Holy Bible?
Well, look at, you know, he mentioned the cults from like the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries.
Exactly.
You look at any of these like sex cult histories and go back to the very beginning in Babylon. The young women, the virgins, you know, there was something about the power of taking a virgin.
Well, see here again, you know, the word mysticism incorporates magic. So, you know, it's all an illusion. These people were so deranged in mind that they thought they could kill the young boy. Moses instructed the killing of the young boys. It's right there in your own Holy Bible. And we're going to magically get the power of that young boy.
Yeah.
It's all Eastern mysticism, even as Ron L. Hubbard brought out here. He understood this. And many, many of your elites in this world understand that. The Watchtower Bible Tract Society understands that. All of your cults understand that. That's why there's a huge assault against all of these, well, Eastern mystic religions that are masking as Christianity are pedophiles. They're hiding. They're harboring pedophiles. My God, here in New Mexico, we can't go a day without something in our local news about that whole Pennsylvania pedophile ring, Catholic Church. They moved them to New Mexico. Now we're discovering some of them will move to Colorado from New Mexico. Well, my God.
The latest is that, you know, some more pedophile Catholic priests in Michigan, and they were sent to New Mexico to this resort, this rehabilitation, you know, center. And it's like, my God, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and, you know, like I mentioned in a previous video, the one thing that all of these mystic religions have in common in this modern day happens to be what we would have deemed our Holy Bible. You've got the Judeo-Christian Bible put together as one.
Then you've got the Quran.
Yeah.
And then you've got, I mean, I can't even remember all of them. There's so many that have their own Bible. You know, even the Samaritans had their own Bible.
Yeah. But see, here's the dilemma that Kim and I face, is that we get accused of misleading our viewers. We get accused of, you know, not teaching the real Jesus. But what these accusers are not recognizing is what's on our side of the computer. What you don't see is that what Kim and I are presenting right now is the research that you viewers are doing, and you're informing us. You're letting us know, because we're the ones that have our face in front of the camera doing this stuff.
Yeah, it's not us doing this research.
Along with men like Mark Dice, who have the balls to stand up to Scientology and make the connection to the ancient Middle East mysticistic religions, which survive to our day. And guess what? Like I said, Watchtower and Babel Crop Society is not, well, they're all part of it. And I'm going to show that from the book of Revelation.
Yeah, it does appear there is a connection, you know, and let's face it, we know Watchtower is part of them.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to our viewers and sending us a link to a podcast by Jeff Doherty. Now, we've watched a few of his videos in the
Bonnie
past.
sent it to us too.
Yes, thank you. We've seen some of his videos in the past. Now, I want it to be known right here and now that that video that I did that was entitled, Who is Jehovah, that I should obey his voice, did not come from Jeff Doherty. This was because I picked up the Bible and started reading it again without somebody telling me how to interpret it.
I think the more recent one is you're called an Erminite.
Erminite. Yeah, well, okay.
And he, you know, started doing this research before we even knew who Bart Ehrman was.
Yeah, now here's the thing. We're going to put a couple of links down below for the people that like to call me an Erminite. Here's the problem that you're going to now face. In the description below, there's going to be a link to a rabbi who says the same thing Bart Ehrman says. There's also going to be another link to a black minister who in front of his congregation says the same thing. This is the issues that all of us face today. This information has always been readily available to us. What we've lacked is the delivery system to get this information communicated to the masses. And
Well,
this
just
is
like the clip for the interview with Ron L. Hubbard. You know, decades ago,
Who knew?
how many knew this? But it's not until YouTube that has the actual interview that, you know, you can get these.
exactly. So I'm going to share something from that Jeff Doherty podcast that Kim and I just, I mean, it was like, wow, how come we never seen that before? I mean, how many times did we sit in the Kingdom Hall and study the Revelation, its grand climax, that handbook?
A lot. At
4?
least 5, 6.
Well, a number of times. In fact, it got so bad that even Watchtower, we had to use whiteout because information that they presented in the original publication of the book became obsolete.
Well, it got to where we would cut out paragraphs of them correcting these and tape it to our old Revelation book. Well, it got to where you'd try to rip out these paragraphs when they changed it again, and you'd rip up your book, so you'd have to go get a new one.
Yes, but here's something that we never caught because, well, let's face it, the Watchtower Bible Tract Society says, you can't understand the Bible without our help. And we see pastors across the board saying this to us, to Kim and I in particular. And I mean, one of them even had the audacity to say, I feel it's my calling to help XJWs understand the Bible because they've been taught incorrectly. I mean, this is the mindset of some of these people coming into this XJW community. They're doing the same thing that Watchtower says. You can't understand the Bible without the help of the faithful and discreet slave, a.k.a. the governing idiots.
You need me and my religion, you know, to teach you because Watchtower taught you wrong.
Yeah, don't make that mistake again because all of them Kim and I have been able to shut down. Trust me on that one. Especially her, since she's the one that argues with him the most, since I work full time.
I'm the mean one.
Yes. But what I want to show here, friends, is that when we studied this book multiple times in our Kingdom Halls, I will refer you to page 193 in the picture of this particular wild beast. Okay? Now, as Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we've all been clued in that the wild beast is originally the fallen angel in the Garden of Eden. It all goes back to Satan, the devil. Now, we all know that Satan is just a title. The King James uses the word Lucifer to give him a more direct identity, Lucifer. So if you were to take that thought process, you could readily acknowledge that this may be perhaps Lucifer himself. Now, when you read the scriptures, and I'm going to go to the next page, 195, you have this picture. So Lucifer is breathing life into this particular wild beast. Now, the Watchtown Bible Tract Society has elected to identify that particular wild beast as the United Nations, because when you studied it further, you will see that Babylon the Great...
It was the beast that was thrown in the abyss, but comes back out, which means it went into the abyss as the League of Nations and then came out of the abyss as the United Nations, as far as Watchtower is concerned.
Right. And this is the follow-up picture that Babylon the Great, the harlot, is riding the back of the wild beast, and the two actually become one.
And the harlot represents Christendom, which is Babylon the Great, the world empire of false religion.
Now, there are some things in this description that when we studied this, we didn't readily pick up the true identity, or perhaps the true identity of this wild beast. Because in the description of this wild beast, it has a head of a lion, it has a head of a leopard, it has the paws of a bear, and it's also got multiple horns. Some of the heads have got one horn, some of the heads have got two horns. Now, in a previous video, we've all seen what Michelangelo did with the image of Moses having two horns, and there's a lot involved with that if you go back and do your research. But one thing that was pointed out in that podcast by Jeff Doherty is Hosea chapter 13. And I want to start with verse 4. Now remember, one wild beast, let me go back to that picture. Here's the picture again. This wild beast gives life to this wild beast. And it was interesting because when I went back through this information, I tried looking for this particular scripture in the Revelation book where it was talking about these wild beasts, and I didn't see any reference to this. Okay? Doesn't mean it's not there, it just means that I didn't see it. But Hosea chapter 13, starting with verse 4. But I am Jehovah your God from the land of Egypt, and there was no God except me that you used to know, and there was no Savior but I. I myself knew you in the wilderness, in the land of Fevers. According to their pasturage, they also came to be satisfied. They became satisfied, and their heart began to be exalted. That is why they forgot me. Here's the description. And I shall become like a young lion. Wait a minute, it was a lion's head that was in that picture.
Well, a young lion, I mean, these are predatory animals.
They're predators. They're wild beasts. Here again, the picture. You can see the mane around the head of that lion. Jehovah is saying, and I will become to them like a young lion, like a leopard. By the way, I shall keep looking. Here's the head of the leopard, people.
This is right from the New World Translation.
Yeah, read it from any Bible. It's all going to read the same. In fact, when Jeff Doherty did this, I think he went right to the King James or one of the others. I forget which.
Yeah, because he said the Bible bullies, are so gung-ho on the King James.
King James. Verse 8, I shall encounter them like a bear that has lost its cubs. I shall... Wait a minute. Bear paws. Those are not cat paws, because when cats walk, Their claws are inside the paw. They actually retract them. These are bear claws. Make no mistake about it, because look at the color change from the leopard to the paw. It changes colors. You guys understand what's going on? Right in front of our very eyes, hiding in plain sight. Jehovah is describing himself as the wild beast in the book of Revelation. Let me go on. And I shall devour them. They're like a lion. A wild beast of the field itself will tear them to pieces. It will certainly bring you to ruin, O Israel, because it was against me, against your helper.
That doesn't sound very loving.
No. Well, here's part of
I
the
would have
problem.
just disowned them, and you guys are on your own.
Well, maybe that's why they turned to worshiping other gods. Maybe that's why the Samaritans decided to say, it's on this mountain that we worship God, but you say in Jerusalem. But here's the problem that this creates for the Jehovah's Witnesses, because this book tells you that in Watchtower's theology, that wild beast, the United Nation that fell but was resurrected, you know, during that, 20s and 30s, 40 period?
40s.
40s, whenever.
World War II.
Yeah, when it was the League of Nations, it died as the League of Nations and was resurrected as the United Nations. That's how the Watchtower Bible Tract Society chooses to look at the fulfillment of these scriptures. But here's another thing you might want to look at. In 587, 586, Jerusalem was destroyed. And then it was resurrected again. Hey, wait a minute. In 70 CE, Jerusalem was dealt another death blow. Has it been resurrected yet? Well, you might want to look at that and question that for yourself. Because when you have the Judeo-Christian Bible as one Bible, and the Christians are following the Judeo laws that were seemingly put to death either in 587, 586, or in 70 CE, and you're still using those things today, then did you not resurrect a God that's bloodthirsty? Figure that out yourself, because hiding in plain sight, the self-description of Jehovah is right there in Hosea.
Yeah. And I just want to make a correction. You know, someone accused us, because you made the comment that Christians were seduced.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you want to change that and make a correction at this point.
To say what?
Okay, well, I'm going to say it. I'll remind him.
Yeah. Well,
Mike and I actually believe that the whole world is seduced.
The whole world is seduced. Exactly. Which would include.
And I can say this because our daughter is a sociology major. And in those classes, see, she's given us her textbooks.
Yeah.
And we've had many, many, many hours of discussion with her about this. And in those sociology classes that she took, and since she's an interpreter for the deaf, she interprets those classes for students, deaf students. But in those classes, they are taught that the entire world is seduced. The entire world is a cult. So when we say, oh, this is a cult, that's a cult. It's not just religion. They are taught, the governments, the media, education, the military, pharmaceutical, the medical field. All of these are cults.
Yeah.
The entire world is seduced.
When
she interpreted one of those like Herbalife or what meetings, and she's like, oh my God.
I remember that.
It's a cult.
Yeah.
So here is just like a sales, conference or seminar, and she could recognize the cult indoctrination.
Yeah, because it's a very effective way to control a person's thinking, to control a person's identity. Let me give you a really good example that I was thinking this morning on the way to getting rid of our garbage. When you think about where we are today as a society of people, we have become so dependent on the government. And in one area that we've become dependent on the government is our food. I mean, really, you've got farmers that are mass producing our food for them. And now there's a huge argument with MGOs in our foods. We don't want those in our foods. We really can't control that, can we? Because who of us really has the time and the resources to grow enough food in our gardens to sustain us for multiple years? So we become dependent on other people to provide for us. One thing that really affects me is the ability to harvest our own source of meat. I can't do that unless I play the government's game. See, I have to fill out a little form, and I have to submit it, and I have to hopefully get drawn to hunt for what is only a few days. 7 days. 7 days.
And you're only allowed one.
One. That's not enough to sustain a family for a year. It's just not enough. But the government dictates what I can and cannot do. That's a cult. Just like Watchtower. You cannot marry out of the truth. You need to marry someone who's in the truth. And in fact, they've even redefined it even more. You sisters need to be looking at a ministerial servant. If this young brother you're looking at isn't reaching out as a ministerial servant, well, is he really good marriageable material? It's all cult indoctrination. You have one man dictating to another man how to live his life.
Yeah. And that's why we don't get too excited about what's on the news and get too involved in political things, because I've had people ask me, oh, well, look at what's going on in the U.S. government right now between this judge's confirmation hearings and stuff. I don't get too excited about all of this.
I don't either.
Because I know they're directing the narrative.
Yep.
And I'll give you a real good example. We mentioned the Sunspot Observatory, and many of you know what's been going on with that. They shut down the observatory. They evacuated that whole little town. They shut down the post office. Black helicopters were seen flying around patrolling. A hiker's dead body was found close to that area. And several other things were going on. And now they've reopened and say, oh, well, it was a janitor that was working for the observatory that was using the observatory's computer and Wi-Fi to view kiddie porn and download it. We're like, bullshit.
Yeah, I was just going to, can I say that's complete and utter bullshit right there,
we
friends.
We don't buy that
not for 1 minute. No, because here's part of the problem with that bullshit narrative. The local sheriff's department was kept completely in the dark.
Yeah.
Any sheriff's department would have been alerted to anybody who's viewing porn, even kiddie porn, in their local area. They would not have kept the local sheriff's department in the dark for something over pornography. God, give me a break.
And the reason we know this is one of the residents that was evacuated. He was camping right on the edge, their boundary. The FBI had swarmed in. He seen the black helicopters flying around, filmed it. Somebody went in with a drone and filmed, this evacuated town and stuff. FBI were seen on the towers. Why go through all of this and spend so much of the military's, time, energy, and the FBI for just a janitor for kiddie porn?
Complete none of bullshit, guys.
Yeah, I know. Some would say we're just conspiracy nutters, but I can't, buy that narrative.
I don't buy it. Just don't buy it.
So, especially when we've learned that all of this is a cult. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify, because some... Oh my God, they're still harping 9 months later that, because Mikey said, religion was a cult. The whole world is a cult.
The whole world's a cult. Yeah, my goodness.
Everybody's trying to control your mind.
Everybody. Even the news media, the government, everybody. It's like, my God.
Well, even the Bible bullies are trying to control our minds.
Even the Bible bullies are trying to control our minds because they've somehow, what it is that they themselves suffer from severe selective research syndrome. That's what it all comes down to. And Jehovah's Witnesses are probably the epitome of a group of people that suffer from selective research syndrome, because when they're told to research a subject, it's you only research what Watchtower has to say. You don't research what others say. You only research what Watchtower says. And he said, yep, Watchtower's got it right again. Well, of course they've got it right, because they're the ones that wrote the book.
Now, earlier we had mentioned about Ron L. Hubbard and Aleister Crowley into these Eastern mystical religions. I got a shocker for you guys. This is the Proclaimer's book. And if you go to chapter 5 on page 43, you can see right there, picture of Russell. But go to the next page. The third full paragraph down, about halfway down, it's talking about Russell's, early beginnings, and he had, dealings with the Adventists, and they are what taught him a lot. We know he was in with the Millerites, and he mentions quite a few. He gives credit to the Adventist, for his beliefs. But that third paragraph, the last sentence, turning away from church creeds and searching for truth, Russell examined some leading Oriental religions only to find them unsatisfying. And we know he was into pyramids and stuff. So you just have to wonder what, Oriental religions was he looking into?
And or how much of those Oriental religions were incorporated into the Watchtower Babel Crap Society back then that we remain ignorant about. Because we're only supposed to research Watchtower literature for our answers.
Well, we already know that he was probably a Zionist.
Yep.
Zion's Watchtower. That was the name of the Watchtower at the beginning. So
Yeah.
do some research on Zionist.
Exactly.
It's all tied in.
In the world we live in today, there's a famous quote, there's a famous saying that says, all roads lead to Rome. Well, that's not really true, because what Kim and I are researching and what we're coming to learn at a very alarming fast pace, mind you, is that all roads not only lead to Rome, they lead to Rome, Babylon, and Egypt, and Samaria. That's where the roads are going, friends.
Yeah, and it leads all the way back to the very beginning of man's history.
Yeah, and how we have become the victims for these bloodthirsty gods. And it only seems like right now that there's enough people in this world communicating this information and telling these bloodthirsty gods, whoever that god may be or gods may be, we've had enough of your bullshit. Stop killing our kids. Stop taking our families away. Stop raping little boys, raping little girls. Stop it. That's why the internet, and YouTube in particular, is the delivery system to knock these gods off their high horses.
And just remember, these blood gods, they feed on blood, violence, and hate.
Yep, exactly. That's what they're feeding on.
Yeah.
They're feeding on the energies that come from
The
this.
negative energy. So, the more of us that can stop this, and just try to show love and get along,
But it's also
starve them
waking
to death.
It's also waking people up to what's really going on also. And that's a lot of what's going on in the world right now, is that there's a huge, huge awakening to what we've all been involved with, and perhaps where humankind is going to at this particular moment.
Yeah, exactly. So you all have a wonderful day, and I want to thank everybody for all of the emails coming in with Nail and Coffin. Oh my goodness, this is great. Keep them coming, keep them coming. So you all have a wonderful week, and we appreciate everything.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching, and please keep that research coming, please, because as I stated, there is a grand awakening happening. Scriptures that were held in secret are now coming to the light. especially for us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and current Jehovah's Witnesses. These are things that your governing idiots know, because they claim they know the Bible better than anybody, but yet we're not looking at these scriptures from a different perspective. And now we are.
Yeah, and like Mike said, we're going to put the links down below to several of these videos that were sent to us. And so thank you, and you have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.